Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of PSINYS Paranormal Talk Radio Show. I'm your host, Patrick. It is October 11th, Sunday, 2015, a little after 9, and we are live. I just want to say thanks to our Facebook fans who are on our Facebook page. We appreciate this, and also those who are with us on Twitter. Now, again, I'm going to announce our website. It's www.psinys.com. You go there, you'll find a little bit about us and what we do. You'll also find a link to our Facebook page and a link to Twitter. You'll also find some of the past shows going up to the present on Blog Talk Radio, PSINYS Paranormal Show. All right, tonight we have a live interview with a guest that was previously on, talking about the Men in Black. About a month or so, a couple months ago, and she's going to join us again tonight. Now, let me give you a little history here about Claudia. Claudia has appeared on the George Norrie's Coast to Coast AM with Timothy Green Beckley, and everybody knows Coast to Coast. George Norrie, very interesting talk show. She has also appeared on some shows with noted UFO investigator Brad Stringer and Alan Greenfield. Brad Strager, I believe. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Some other shows that she's been on includes the Paracast, the Clyde Lewis Show, Darkness Radio, another good one there. She has been written about in several books by Timothy Green Beckley and international paranormal expert Nick Remford. Claudia's most recent adventures are featured in Renford's new book, Men in Black, Personal Stories and Eerie Adventures, which is recently released. Her life story is a study of paranormal happenings, including UFO sightings, poltergeist activity, and witnessing a full-body apparition in Albany's notorious Tenbrook Mansion in 1967. She is a native of Albany, New York area, and a student of all things paranormal. A very talented and interesting woman, and we always welcome her as a guest on our show. If any of you heard the show when she was talking about the Men in Black, it was very interesting. So tonight she'll be talking with us here live, and she'll be talking hopefully a little bit about her book, the recent book that she's in, and some local folklore, legends, as well as haunted locations. So we expect to have her on shortly. And I'm going to take first the call-in number. We also welcome call-ins, and we hope that some people will call in tonight. And perhaps if you have stories of your own, that would be great. We could do that in the second hour of the show. But if you wish to talk to her or talk to us or have any questions tonight with our guests, feel free to call in. Our call-in number is 914-205-5355. Again, 914-205-5355. And we'll begin shortly with Claudia Cunningham as soon as she calls in. I'm going to take a small break now, and we shall return with our live guest, Claudia. Hello.
Hello, Patrick. This is Claudia. How are you this evening?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy Halloween season.
Yep.
I have brought a few ghost stories for the occasion with me today.
Oh, and, good.
Actually, it's very odd, but I've been talking recently to some friends that I hadn't seen in quite a while, and it seems to be an epidemic of strange sightings all over. For example, my cousin, she told me, and I never knew this about her, but a while back she had gone to a party at someone's house in Rensselaer, New York, which is, if anyone is not familiar, it's across the river from Albany, the capital of New York State. And during the course of the evening, the woman said, "Don't be surprised if you see an elderly lady kind of peeking over your shoulder. That's my grandmother. She died 20 years ago." Huh. So my cousin kind of laughed. After a few cocktails, she thought everybody was a little goofy. Well, about a half hour later, they were sitting in the living room and, got the Ouija board out. And before they could start using it, there was this lady right in the doorway, a full-bodied apparition of a woman about 80 years old. Huh. So that's one thing. I spoke to a friend of mine in San Diego lately, and she was in the process of moving to Carmel, California, and she has a garage filled with a lot of junk. And she said, she says, I went in there, I was trying to clean out. And she said, I was taking a picture of an antique dresser that I had that I wanted to sell. And so she got her phone out and took the picture. And when she went in the house, here was a man standing in the corner of her garage with long arms, so long that they actually touched the ground.
Wow.
So I wouldn't want to run into him, I don't think, ever. But actually, it's just something is going on in the world where I think the conventional religions of of our own time when we were growing up are not practiced, and I think a new form of spirituality has taken its place. And I believe something is, I'm not saying it's anything positive, I don't know, but an awful lot of people are seeing these things. So my own, I guess my own, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a career, I'm kind of an amateur ghost hunter, but my own really deep interest started in 2010, as you know, when my friend Linda saw a disappearing black car in the cemetery. And I believe I told that on your last show. Is that right? I told you that story?
Yes.
I'm not sure. But just to give a quick update, if other people maybe have missed the show, in 2010, there's a cemetery probably a good 5 miles outside of Albany, New York, in a little town called Menands. And the way we look at death and cemeteries has kind of changed a lot over the years. Originally, the norm was when a family member died, the deceased family kind of took care of the body themselves and buried it on their property. That was very common. And as time went on and the capital area developed more, it proved kind of impractical and actually something of a health hazard to have families stash bodies here and there on their own property. So churches took over the duty of interring the bodies after death. The churches had no more access to unlimited land than actually their parishioners did. By the early, I would say, 1800s, the cities had taken over the care and maintenance of the various burial grounds. Actually, a burial ground was opened in the early 1800s in Albany, in what is now, I believe it's Washington Park. It was split into sections, and each slice was kind of for the use of a different area or a different church. Anyway, it was such a popular practice that it kind of caught on. Back then, bodies weren't embalmed or anything, and many times coffins weren't even used. They were made from, the thinnest, cheapest pine boards that could be purchased anywhere. So churches kind of dug up bodies to find them, long decomposed and the coffins gone if they had ever existed in the first place. So the process went on until the mid-1800s. I just have to kind of lay the groundwork for how I got into this. It's kind of interesting. I don't want to bore your audience, but I did a lot of studying on that cemetery. But the city decided to create a rural cemetery outside the city limits in Menands. So the bodies were brought there, and from then on, bodies were actually buried there. Today, it's a beautiful place, but I'll tell you, sometimes it looks like something out of a scary movie. A lot of weird things go on there. A lot of people claim there are evil spirits in there. I tend to believe that. Although it is something of a Capital District who's who. You find Albany mayors are there, Revolutionary War generals, and even our 24th president by the name of Chester A. Arthur, which is not remembered. I don't think anyone remembers him, but he's there. So anyway, it takes me back to 2010 when a friend of mine called me out of the blue, and she said, "Please sit down. I have something really upsetting to tell you." She said, "I took a ride over to the cemetery today. It was a beautiful day, and I just wanted to kind of do a historical tour." And she says, I appeared to be all alone in there. And it's a cemetery with a lot of little side roads, gravelly side roads. So if you hear anyone coming, if your window's down, you would hear someone if someone was in back of you or coming down the road ahead of you. And she said it was very quiet, and pulled over to the side of the road and was about to take her keys out of the ignition. And in the space of maybe a second or two, she looked up in her mirror, and here was this big black Hummer. It looked like a Hummer, brand new, great big black thing with big black tires. The windows were all black. It looked brand new. It looked absolutely not driven before. No noise, nothing. So she said, I was scared, and she said, I really thought I was going to be robbed. So she kind of crept away from this thing a few feet and to see if it would follow her, and instead it backed up and it turned around and appeared to go down one of those side roads. So she decided to follow it. And when she did, she was astounded to find there was not only no road there, but a chain-link fence with only graves on the other side of the fence.
Right.
So she turned around, went down the way she came in, and the thing was sitting right in the middle of, right inside the gate, like it was kind of waiting for her to go by. And there was a man all in black, very skinny, kind of Indian-looking, with dark, kind of a swarthy complexion, kind of like an Indian, someone from India might have. Black hat, black shirt, all in black, completely black sunglasses. And she said he gave her the creepiest look. So she said, I just got out of there so quick. And she says, I looked in the mirror and the whole thing was gone in the space of a second, just completely vanished. So we did a study to find out what other events were going on and there were happenings. And we were amazed to find that a black dog appears with red eyes at dusk, follows people out of the cemetery. Very big thing, very spooky looking, comes out of nowhere. A couple, they hold hands and kind of drift over the tombstones at dusk. There is a funeral procession that goes around this big lake or pond in the cemetery, and they look like something out of maybe the 1800s. The ladies have dark veils on, long black dresses, and the casket is in a cart drawn by horses. And if you try to approach them, they leave. They just vanish in front of your eyes. So I wrote to Timothy Green Beckley, who is very well-known and famous in the paranormal world. He's a publisher, author. He does television, radio. And I wrote to him, and I had read a book called The Real Men in Black years ago that he wrote, which was absolutely the most chilling thing I think I've ever read. It still gives me nightmares. And I wrote to him and I said, does this sound like a man in black to you? Or what is your opinion? And I kind of described what happened, and he contacted me. He says, I love your story so much. He said, I'd like you to do some radio shows with me. So that's how I got on Coast to Coast. That was my original appearance with him. And we've become very good friends. We've recently shot footage in the cemetery, and nothing came out this time, but there's always the next time. So that's how, like I say, that's how I kind of got into the area of studying this stuff. This is kind of a weird subject. I could spend a whole night just talking about the Men in Black. I may get into it a little bit later, but they appear after someone sees a close UFO sighting. They kind of knock on your door in the middle of the night. They may be dressed in the 1930s style. They might have a handkerchief in their pocket like our grandfathers used to wear. They would wear sometimes a fedora hat. They walk kind of unsteadily. They talk in a very sing-song voice, like almost mechanical. One time, one was spotted in a restaurant, and he actually tried to drink Jell-O. And he looked at his eating utensils, his knife and fork, and didn't know how to cut his steak, and they had to show him. So these are very strange creatures, but they seem to come out of nowhere. Actually, in 1973, and this area is really, let me say, extremely haunted, for lack of a better word. They're for centuries, from the Catskill Mountains to up through the Adirondacks, up into Canada. It's a very well-known paranormal area. And in 1973, I was in my early 20s, and I decided to go shopping after dinner with my grandmother. And we took the short ride over to a little town called Del Mar, which is probably 2 miles from my front door. And on the way over, we kind of looked over the mountains, and here was the biggest. We thought it was a harvest moon, but it was way too big to be a moon. It was so big it actually looked like it was sitting on the earth. It was mammoth, and it was right over the mountains. And it kind of disappeared, and then kind of over our car, it became a gold disc. It was kind of spinning and doing flips and very strange things going on. So we got into the town of Del Mar, and we saw what appeared to be a gigantic flashlight because it went over back and forth over the treetops, and you couldn't see where the light was coming from. So come to find out, that was the year of the great Hudson Valley sightings. It was what they call a flap when there were numerous UFO sightings. It went on for over 2 years. And it went from the lower Hudson region, where Whitley Strieber wrote about in his all-time bestseller, Communion, where he was visited by creatures in his camp down in Westchester, all the way from Westchester up to Albany. There seems to be somewhat of a UFO corridor that goes from the lower Hudson Valley to southern Connecticut. This is where it's great big. It was a delta-shaped UFO, all black, very silent, the size of 2 football fields, and it would just kind of, didn't do much, but every night people would see it, flying around. After a couple of years, it kind of vanished. If anyone is interested in that whole time frame and all the weirdness that went on down there, there's a book by Philip Imbrogno, and it's called A Night Siege and the Hudson Valley Sightings, which is I really recommend if anyone is interested in that subject. Really very riveting. So it's not just UFOs that are here. We have ghosts, we have poltergeists, we have an assortment of just about anything you can imagine, right in our own backyard. In 1967, I was very young, a lot younger than I am now, and I was going with an Albany police officer who was very young. He just got on the force. And there's a place in Albany called the Ten Brook Mansion, very haunted. It was built in 1848. And the people would let the young police officers come in at night, and it was cold out. It was in about this time of year, and they'd make them hot chocolate, and they'd sit around and tell them all the strange things that went on in that house. And it was all sorts of things. A woman would appear coming down the gallery on the second floor from the waist up, looking like something out of 1700. The crockery in the upstairs sitting room, the teacups would be all rearranged the following day. They used to hear the rocking chairs go back and forth at night. So he came out to my house one night, and he says, I never believed in this stuff, but he said, I walked into this one room, and he said it got really cold in there, and he said, I just sensed that there was something not of this world in there. And he says, I know you love this, so he says, I want you to come down and meet these people. So I did. I went down there with him one evening, and we went up to the sitting room, and I said to the curator who lived there, I said, I would give anything to see something happen. And at that moment, right in the doorway, from the ground up, was a brown mist that actually was taking the shape of a very small woman. And I saw it right in front of my eyes. That's the last time I'll ever want to see anything like that. It was very scary. So my own sightings, I could talk all night, but I won't. There's a place in Saratoga, which, of course, is noted for the racetrack, and it's probably a half hour from Albany, where you and I both live. And there's a place up there called the Old Bryan Inn. It's an interesting place. It's an old stone house, and it's George Washington actually stopped by there on his way to Canada, and it's extremely haunted. Revolutionary War hero by the name of Alexander Bryan bought the inn in the 1700s, and it stayed with the family until the 1900s. But some of the ghosts that live there seem to date from Alexander Bryan's day and right up into the current time. And there are at least two men in Revolutionary War uniforms who are seen in the ladies' room. Can you imagine that? Going to the ladies' room and seeing a man on a white horse? But many people have seen it. In the bar, a lot of times the glasses are seen levitating, and then they smash onto the floor. I've spoken to people who work there. They will not go in the basement alone without someone with them. A lot of people think it's ghosts of revolutionary soldiers, but there's also a lady there that has a long green dress on, and they think she's a relative of the Bryans, and they call her Eleanor, and she kind of floats down the stairs at night. She's seen there many, many evenings. So that's one place. But getting back to the Men in Black for just a minute, I have a fondness for them. I've kind of followed them for so long. I have done a great deal of reading about them, and they're seen all over the country. I mean, they're actually seen all over the world. In England, they usually arrive in big black Mercedes. Over here, they drive Cadillacs or sometimes Lincoln Town cars, but they're always in dark clothing. They are, like I say, not of this world. They're clueless. It seems like they're caught in some weird time frame, or they're out of time. I guess that's the word I would use. Are they time travelers, or are they demons, or are they CIA? No one seems to know, but it seems to be their job to intimidate people into not talking about what they've seen.
Right.
Up in Schenectady in I believe it was 1967, it was a very famous case in Scotia on the river. A UFO landed in the middle of the wintertime. And there was a woman by the name of Jennifer, someone who was a very well-known UFO investigator. And she was threatened by these men in black. And her husband was having lunch in a downtown cafeteria, and one actually sat next to him. And he said, tell your wife that people who investigate UFOs should be very, very careful. And the guy disappeared right in front of him. So it's up for grabs. What are these things? I don't know, and I don't want to meet one either. But down, Have you, Pat? I must ask you: have you ever seen a spirit? Have you? I know you've been involved in years of research. Have you ever actually seen anything materialize?
Well, yeah, actually, I have. One time, actually, when I was, this is going way back, I had lost someone that I was very close to, and I had spent, shortly after that, probably 6 months after, I went up to like a mountain retreat, and I was in this cabin by myself. It was very nice. It was up north, and probably twice as expensive as it was back then now, but anyway, so I was sitting there, and there was a storm coming up, thunderstorm, and I don't know. I know I wasn't. It wasn't a hallucination. I wasn't drunk. I did have a brandy, which I'd been sipping on for most of the night. And people that know me, if I fill a glass of brandy up, I put ice in it, and usually the ice is melted and the brandy's still there. So it takes me at least a good hour, maybe several hours to drink, half a glass of brandy, because I enjoy it. I sip it, I relax,
Sure.
And I had a fire going in the fireplace in the cabin, and it was that was the only light that was really on, except for the lightning that was outside.
Yes.
But yet there was still enough light in the cabin where I could see, and it wasn't dark, and I noticed several things about an hour after the storm was brewing, was going.
Yeah.
That there was some atmospheric changes inside the cabin itself. There was a very eerie quietness. There was also a coolness, very very cool, like a cool breeze that started getting cooler, and then in the opposite corner of the where the fireplace is, it was like a light, a very dimly lit, whitish blue light started to form in that corner, and as that was forming, I mean, I was looking at it. I was pretty much amazed and hypnotized at that point, and I was watching it, and it seemed to take a shape, and
oh boy.
and the shape started to form very clearly. Now, I don't know exactly how long this was. It seemed like it was forever, but it may have only been 20 or 30 seconds at the most. But it just seemed like it was a long time that this image had started to appear. Well, it finally turned out that it was turned into the full body. I mean, it was like solid, and as the features started getting more and more appearing in the face, the hair, it turned out to be the person that had died, that I was close to 6 months prior. And I wasn't scared. Like I said, I've never shown any fear of anything like that, and I've always been interested in that type of work and have studied that stuff too. So when I seen her, I started to move toward her, and the closer I got, I could feel the colder it felt, and I wanted. I mean, she was very close to me, so I wanted to reach out and touch her, and as I was going to reach out to her with my arms, she apparently was doing the same thing, and moving toward me as I was moving toward her. I very seldom tell this story, but I figured tonight would be a good night to tell it.
Yes.
And as I was maybe inches away from her, again, it was cold, and you could feel like a static.
Like an electromagnetic.
Right, like static electricity.
Yeah.
Going on the skin of your body and stuff, my body.
Yes.
And when I reached out to touch her and embrace her, I actually, cold as ice, but I felt her like she was solid.
Solid.
And same when she put her arms around me, and we were maybe inches away from each other, and I would say less than that, maybe a half an inch, and I could see her eyes, and then all of a sudden she faded away. It started to fade away.
Did you find comfort? Were you comforted by that, or were
I hated to see her go, but I was very happy that for that 1 second I was able, to. And again, I don't know. It seemed like it was hours, but it was probably only 20 or 30 seconds. But it felt like it had been an hour. Like it was like we were right there.
Yeah. That's what everybody wants.
But after that, again, like I said, you could, and that's when I noticed that changes do take effect when a full body apparition is about to appear, and I noted those, and I've been following those during my investigations,
Yeah.
that I've done. So when you feel the coldness, and then you feel static electricity, like your skin is being touched by 1,000
Right.
ants or something. That's
Right.
like, yeah. And then when you see a mist or a glowing area starting to form, and if you're fortunate enough to actually see a full body apparition, and it becomes solid for that 1 second or 2 seconds or even 20 seconds,
Right.
and you're able to touch it,
That's incredible.
and it's like that's when I realized that the only thing that separates the living from us, or the living from the dead, is a very, very thin veil.
I believe that.
Very, very thin. And lately I've noticed the past few years that veil has been getting more and more open.
It is.
With the EVPs, with more and more sightings.
Yes.
The communications.
Yeah.
Putting a recorder on a desk and leaving it for a few hours, coming back, and I've actually got conversations of people that weren't here, but I believe are on the other side, talking to each other.
Yeah.
And that is being picked up. So that's
something is happening.
Oh yeah.
You can feel something going on, can't you? There's so much and so many people are interested in this stuff. Like you said that you feel a change in the room and everything. I through studying, someone once said, some investigator, that when they come through the spiritual world, they go through the infrared, and that's when you start to feel the coldness. It's kind of a electromagnetic effect. Sometimes people who see so-called aliens, they have the same comments to make. They feel, kind of sometimes hot, sometimes cold, and a lot of times you'll hear them say that they have a sunburn. They get a sunburn from a UFO if they have a close encounter. Their eyes are affected. Sometimes their eyes are burned. They call it Klieg conjunctivitis. Klieg light and conjunctivitis, right? So there's something to do with the infrared when they're coming over. So that causes
like I said,
the cold.
between the electromagnetic and the vibration, the coldness, and the infrared. A lot of them, a lot of the situations, things that appear, the spirits are sometimes beyond the infrared, and thank goodness that they've developed some cameras now that actually see beyond the infrared, and with those, we're getting a lot more penetration of the veil to get more, photography of these spirits into that other world. So it's definitely very interesting.
I think in the years to come, we're going to find out a lot more than we know now, and not in the too distant future.
Yeah,
because there's so many people into this, studying it, and now we, like you say, we have all the gadgets and the EVPs and the infrared cameras, and it's a different game now.
Yeah.
But one little town a little bit south of here, actually called Tarrytown, which is halfway between here and New York City. That's the home of Washington Irving, who wrote The Headless Horseman, and he was very well known to be interested in the occult, and his house is extremely haunted. They see him walking through his garden at night. He lived in the 1700s, and he also wrote Ichabod Crane. And the whole town, and I went through there recently when I went down to Hyde Park for a meeting, and it was, well, the minute you get into Tarrytown, it's like a throwback into another time. He called it a drowsy, dreamy influence that hangs over the town, and that's exactly what it's like. It seems to be, I can't describe the atmosphere, but it's kind of I don't want to say a creepy place, but it's very interesting. It's where history and mystery meet.
Right.
The headless horseman is seen to gallop over the graves in the old Sleepy Hollow Cemetery on certain nights of the year. So many things. They hear they call it a banshee. It's a scream that comes out of the cemetery on certain nights of the year. It's very haunted. I would not want to be down there by myself, I'll put it that way. And our friend Lori and Linda Berkeley, as friends of ours, they reported, I believe, the last time we all got together, they talked about the Beardsley Castle. Isn't that right, where they saw the lady in old dress?
Oh, Beardsley, yes.
You heard that? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been.
That's
Yeah,
another...
I've visited. I mean, I've been there a few times over the years.
I was there for dinner once, and it's got a lot of atmosphere, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a different feeling, different. I mean, there's definitely something is there. So.
Yes. Yep. Well, that was. It's an old castle for those who'd like to look it up, and it's in Little Falls, New York, built in 1860, and
the best place to get the feeling is down. It's actually downstairs in the bar area.
And
where
is that
they
right?
have that's where they have like an old. Well, they have a bar there, but they also have like a couple of rooms with an old, looks like an old jail cell or something.
Oh.
And no, I mean that's it. It's definitely. I mean, you can feel it's just that you can feel it in the air down there because there's a lot of energy down there and it's not bad. It's good energy, but it's just that there is energy there.
Well, Lori and Linda, who we both know are very psychic, they saw two ladies. They thought they were waitresses dressed in like the costumes of a serving girl from the 1700s.
Right.
And I think it was Linda complimented the manager. She said, "Gee, that's a nice gag you have going there. That's probably good for business." And he said, "Oh, we don't have anybody that works here like that."
Right.
So when I researched it, come to find out, it's right in a book that I read recently where a blonde woman sitting in a long dress in the ladies' room with what they called a dust cap and a long gown. She greets people when they go into whatever they do in there. And there's a woman in a similar attire that carries a bed tray to some non-existent stairway. And even a ghostly quartet that dines by candlelight that disappears the minute you try to approach them. So we should go there sometime for a seance or do something out there, I think. It's not that far from Albany.
No,
it's
not.
Fun.
Yeah, it would be. Maybe get the team together, get us together, and just head out there.
In fact, I asked Tim Beckley, I said the next time he comes up to Albany, if he'd like to go out there. So if he has time, maybe we can all, go out there and see what we can scare up.
Yeah.
Another place a little bit south of here is a place called the Christ Episcopal Church. Now, this is a really interesting place. When you think of a church, you don't think of it as being haunted, but this is. And I mean, a lot of people that go there, they try to reconcile their faith with their belief in the supernatural. But there are many, many churches that appear to be haunted, and that was built in, I believe, the 1700s. And did you ever hear of Bishop Pike? He was very well known for, he was a very famous medium in the 50s, and he did a lot of television. He wrote a bestseller called The Other Side. And he was,
I've heard of him.
Yeah. And he was the rector there in the late 40s. And he saw a ghost in the church, and he thought it was the ghost of a former rector that used to walk up the stairs. But during one Mass, when he lit a holy candle, Pike was actually attacked by a bat on the altar, and it came out of nowhere. And just as the bat came down after him, wind blew out the candle, just as the thing kind of headed for his head. And it was, witnessed by the entire congregation. But candles, here's another thing. Candles and bats have featured really prominently in like other incidents at the church. The candles in the church library, if I remember correctly, extinguish by themselves when there's no wind or anything around. They just, they light and they go out all by themselves, which is kind of freaky. And this bat has been seen a lot, and there's something very evil about it. They're not. Myself, I'm kind of afraid of them. I've always had a phobia, but I don't know. I guess they serve their purpose. They eat a lot of insects, but they're awful looking things.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of action going down in that church. So that is, I believe, near Terrytown, actually.
Huh.
So that's another place on our ghost trip through this evening. And I mentioned the Hudson Valley UFO flap.
Yeah.
It started in 1982. And it was a V-shaped, like a delta-shaped, like I said, a dark, 2 football field long, silent, black UFO, whatever it was. And there are incidences now where people have reported seeing strange lights in the sky. So whether that thing is coming back again after all these years, I don't know. But as we go back up to Terrytown, there's another thing going on in that area right now, and people are seeing a giant jack-o'-lantern that actually harasses the residents and the farmers in the area. And in 1982, truckers went through the area in their 18-wheelers, and the thing, it was the size of a 747, came after them.
Wow.
So can you imagine? I can't even imagine that. But there's a lot of strange happenings down there. So another place to go for one of our ghost hunts, maybe in the nice weather. But I know that there's a lot of places right in Albany that have been said to be haunted, and that includes our own Capitol building. There was a fire. There was a fire there with someone killed, and they can hear them screaming, and that's very common. That's been going on for decades. Beside the Albany Rural Cemetery, we have Vale Cemetery in Schenectady, where the statuaries actually bleed blood from their eyes. And there's a little chapel on site, and weird organ music comes out of that at night, on certain nights of the year. People have been pushed, they've been tripped, they've been pinched, and no one has ever got anything on film, but a lot of people have reported that. And Life magazine several years ago, I believe it's a cemetery in Troy, and I wish I remembered the name of it. Forest Park Cemetery, said to be the most haunted cemetery in the country. Everything goes on there at night. The action begins after dusk. Apparitions are seen, orbs every night. Again, people are attacked physically. And I went by there at one point, and I'll tell you, I couldn't get the car to go in the driveway. It is so frightening. And all the old, they don't keep it up. There's a lot of tall grass in there, and it looks like it's been neglected through the years. But if you want to see something strange, that's the place to go. We have Union College, also haunted. We have the Schenectady Stockade area, also haunted. The Cohoes Music Hall. We live in a very active area. So, anyway, there's also a cemetery in Stillwater who says, I guess that was another very active cemetery up until a few years ago when a woman in white was seen walking most evenings over the grave. And getting back to the Albany Rural, a friend of mine used to ride a bus to school with the caretaker from that cemetery, and he said he would open the cemetery at dusk and close it or open it before dawn and close it at dusk. And
Right.
he said many, many, many times in the early morning hours, just before the sun is completely up, a lady all in black will walk by and just kind of nod. And he says she's very nice, and he says, but when I turn around again, she's gone. And so that's another sighting up there. I would like to go up there at some point and do an investigation if you're ever into it. I guarantee something would show up.
Yeah,
So,
we were thinking of actually we're thinking of doing just some EVPs, toward just before dark and see, because again, as I said in, I think it was last week's show or
right.
the week before, one of them we were talking about EVPs and a lot of people are under the impression that you have to do these at a certain time of night, in the middle of the night or between when it gets dark until like 5 in the morning. You don't necessarily have to do that, because we've been getting some, and I'm sure a lot of other groups have been doing the same thing, getting Class A EVPs very clear during the daytime hours. So it doesn't really matter what time of the day it is or what time of the night it is.
Right.
When they're going to come through and you've got something, that's it. You can't put them on a schedule, unfortunately, and you can't get them on command, but they're there. And whether it's day or night,
they're unpredictable.
Right, and
that's
they're going to talk.
That's what makes it scary. Yeah, they come out of nowhere, which is very, intimidating.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting.
I think Oakwood Cemetery too. And doesn't that have a history of some haunting?
Oh,
I believe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I forgot about that. Someone wrote in. Now, I'm always cruising the sites online about new sightings in cemeteries around here, and a couple of teenage boys were up there one night, and probably up to no good, drinking beer or whatever they were doing, and they actually saw a thing with a hood on sit up from behind a tombstone, and these guys were pushed down this little incline by invisible hands. So, many people have reported a lot of strange goings-on there. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But, I think most cemeteries are haunted. They say spirits, they tend to go to dark places, garbage dumps, landfills, caves, any place that's desolate and dark, and what better place than a place where dead bodies are? I think that attracts them. I think all cemeteries, or most of them are. One other thing I wanted to mention, if you go a little bit further south, actually a lot south to Long Island, there's a place called Mount Misery. Have you ever heard of it?
Mount Misery.
Yes.
I may have. I'm not. It's not hitting offhand. But go ahead and tell us about that.
Okay. Well, it's a smorgasbord of all kinds of strange happenings down there. Has been since at least the early '60s. During the UFO flap of 1972, I think it was 1973. There was a radio show out of WABC, I believe, in Manhattan, called the Long John Baldry Show. Now, John Baldry was one of the pioneers in late-night occult talk radio. He would have these characters on. Some of them were unintentionally funny. But this was not done before. We got on the radio and started talking about this stuff. They come with a butterfly net and take you away to a nice padded cell. But he was the first fearless. He would tackle any subject. And he interviewed a woman who walked in the studio and professed to be Princess Moon Owl. Moon Owl, her name was. She had big, bulgy eyes. And she said she was from the planet Venus. And she said, in 10 minutes, I have to take this pill or I'll turn into a snake. Now, I heard this old broadcast. It was really funny. But she played it straight. And she started to talk about the misery on the Mount Misery. And he said, well, what are you talking about? And she said, well, that's where the UFOs come to drop me off and pick me up. So everybody kind of had a good laugh about it. But years later, John Keel, who was the probably penultimate investigator and one of the godfathers of UFO literature, investigators. He was top shelf. He had many classic books that you can still buy today.
Yeah.
He did a whole book on that. And it's in Huntington, Long Island. It's in a very desolate area. The roads aren't lit. There's no houses on it. Boy, I don't even know where to start. They have Men in Black. They have the Black Dogs, of course, which are always seen. A phantom policeman. Constant UFO sightings night after night. And Keel even mentioned that if you want to see a UFO, the most common time to see one is a Wednesday evening at 10 o'clock. More sightings happen at that time than any other. But there's a lady up there in white they call Mary, who causes a lot of fatal accidents. She just kind of comes out of nowhere. And I said before, the phantom police officer with a blood-stained uniform, and many, many, many people have seen these things, and it's all pretty well documented. But they call this black dog that lives up on that mountain the Hellhound, and he goes after you. He has literally glowing red eyes, and he's about the size of a panther. They say he's that big. He's huge. Probably not a dog at all. Probably some kind of a demonic character. So that's Mount Misery. Better to stay off that. I have no desire to go.
Yeah.
But John Keel was an interesting man, and if anyone is interested in any of his books, he was the original. He came out with the Mothman prophecies, and I believe it was 1968. That was before the movie. It had nothing to do with the movie. That's when a series of paranormal happenings. It was West Virginia. That's when the Silver Bridge collapsed, and the town was taken over by strange little people, and they called it the Garuda. It was a flying monster with big red eyes. It's a very good read. The Mothman Prophecies by John Keel, Keel. And also Project Trojan Horse, which talks about all the odd things. And he had a line in there which always stuck with me. He said, if there is a universal mind, must it be sane? And he believed that all kinds of, there was no explanation for anything. It's all one indescribable whole, and that people or entities are playing tricks on us every day of our lives. And, with a wicked sense of humor. He said, we are property. We are owned by these. That's a terrible thought, isn't it? But it's good. It's a good late night read. Just don't read it by yourself.
Well, my philosophy, my saying is that the universe has a wicked sense of humor. It has no sense of humor at all, and it just, that's where you see a lot of weird things and a lot of tragedies, and so the universe has a strange sense of humor.
It does. We'll never know. We'll never understand it until we get to the other side. We're never going to know here, but we know enough to ask the questions, and that's what keeps things interesting, right?
That's it. Now I was going to ask you about your what is it? Recent the recent book that what is it? Nick Renford.
Yes. Yeah.
So. Some of the stories that are in there, pretty much. I don't want you to obviously say them because I want people to buy the book. But
yes, well, Nick is. You see him on. Oh my heavens, he's on everything. He's on UFO Hunters. He's on. Every type of paranormal witness, everything, any type of show like that on television, you'll see him. He's from England, very interesting young guy. He's a best-selling author. I was in one of his books a few years ago on the Men in Black, and he, I talked the last time I talked to him. He said, I'm doing a book, and he said, I know you told Tim Beckley that you had a lot of telephone problems after you saw this UFO stuff, these sightings, and I said yes.
Right.
And he said, I'm doing a book on that, how weird things happen after you encounter one of these things, whatever they are. And he said, I want you to, type up your story and your experiences. And he says, I'll put it in the book. And that was about a year and a half ago. And anyway, the book just came out a couple of weeks ago. And in fact, he's going to mail me one. I should be getting it any day now. I haven't read it yet. But this goes, in fact, this is in the book, probably I was just married, so 78, 79, somewhere in there. I lived in an apartment. My husband and I had just gotten married. And he was a police officer at the time, and he worked nights. And I used to listen to the radio and in bed most nights, and they had a paranormal show on, which I loved. And one night they had Betty Hill on, the famous Betty Hill of the famous UFO sightings, the first close encounter ever documented from 1961.
Right.
Betty and Barney Hill. And Barney had died under very strange circumstances. He was, according to Mr. Keel's book, approached by a very strange fellow with no mouth. He had lipstick on. He actually had to create a mouth. He was as white as a sheet. He had a derby hat, walked with, the way these crazy men in black walk. And he was warned off of going further with any type of, talk about UFOs. And he said, I want you to look at something in my pocket. And he took out a gold coin, and he made it disappear. And he said, pretend that's your heart. He says, I can make your heart disappear if you continue with this stuff. The strange thing was, within a year, he died, supposedly, of a heart attack, which was really, really bizarre. Anyway, this one night, I was in bed, probably about 7:30, and they interviewed Mrs. Hill, who was a widow at the time, from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where she lived. And she was telling about her adventures on with the UFO people, and where they took her, and all the examinations they were doing, and the whole story, which is a bestseller. Again, if anyone wants to know about this very famous case, it was The Interrupted Journey by I believe John Fuller wrote that book. It's a classic. It's very, very well written, and she talked about her adventures, and she was a very believable lady, an older lady at the time. And she said, what's really funny, she said, a lot of times when I start talking about this, my telephone will ring, and it will be nothing but static. And she said, it happens every time, and I'll be darned if you could hear the static on the radio. Her phone went off. So I was kind of, spooked out by that. Right. Anyway, I turned the radio off, and I was reading probably some scary book or whatever. I don't know what it was. And my telephone rang, and I picked it up, and guess what? Static. And that would happen every time I would talk about a subject like that. In fact, when I was on, I don't think it was Coast. It was one of the shows I did with Tim. Our phone, my cell phone went out. Then his went out. The number that we called in, that didn't work. Every time we would talk about this stuff, it's very common. And so someone is listening 24/7 to whatever we say. Isn't that a nice thought?
Yeah, no, I've heard. Well, that's true. I've heard that happen. I know it happened a couple times on George Norrie's show too, Coast to Coast, when he was talking to a few people out there that were dealing with UFOs and government conspiracies, stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
They would cut off. It would cut off. It would, somebody's phone would die. Their phone would get interrupted. It's just. I think that happened. I think it happened once too with what's his name? That David Lewis Anderson. He's
yes.
Yeah, he's one of the time travel guys. He apparently has an institute and is working on time travel. So it happened a couple of times with him too, and it's just it's a lot of strange things. Whether it's the government or whether it's
I think
who knows?
Both.
It could be.
I think it
could be.
I think it's the NSA or the CIA or
and
maybe paranormal energies too. Another thing that's in the book. This happened when I was again. A lot of this happened. All these experiences kind of happened in the 60s or 70s to me, but I was probably 19 years old, and I used to meet my boyfriend. He worked late, and I would meet him for coffee, and he would, we'd sit and have a Coke or something, and I'd drive home to I lived with my parents,
right.
and I lived in and I still live. You've seen my house. There's a field next to the house. It's kind of remote, and I was always afraid, with my wild imagination, to come home late at night when my parents were out. Now I would have to get out of the car. The field would be there. I always had a feeling somebody was going to grab me. Your imagination works overtime. So I would pray, like on a Saturday night, that my parents were home, because they often went out to dinner and dancing or whatever. Well, this one night, I was doing a little Ouija board. I was reading about UFOs. I was studying all things unknown. That's when I started to get into this stuff. And it seems like you open some type of a portal when you're open to this stuff. You'll see. I can't go into it tonight. I'd be on the phone for 6 hours. But all the weird things that have happened since my interest in this subject. But this one particular night, I came home. I had to go past this old spooky cemetery, and I'm praying that my parents are home. I said, oh, please let their car be in that driveway. Well, guess what? They weren't home.
Right.
So my heart's beating a little bit, and I said, well, this is crazy. I'm just going to get out the car, go in the house, lock the door, turn the light on, go to bed. Well, at the time I worked for New York Telephone and Telegraph. That's what they called it back then. And all the employees were given a free telephone, and I got a very pretty little pink telephone that was in my bedroom. I had a private line. My parents' phone was in another room. And I was thrilled with this phone. I mean, I just loved it. And I had just gotten the phone. Now, I gave the number to my boyfriend. It was unlisted. My girlfriend, my two girlfriends had it, period. No one else had it. So I came in the house, locked the door, turned the light on, and my phone was ringing. And I thought, wow, 1 o'clock in the morning, who would be calling me? Because Dennis, he never called to, when I kissed him goodnight, that was it. He never would call me. And I thought, well, who could it be, And I picked up the phone, and I said, hello. And it was a man's voice. And he sounded maybe about 40. And he said, Claudia? And I said, yes. I said, who is this? He said, I see that you just pulled in your driveway. He said, do you know what I'm going to do to you? Can you imagine that? Well, my mind is going in 20 different directions. Number one, no one had the number. My boyfriend would never do that. He was a very serious guy. Never in the world do that. It wasn't him anyway. Right. It was my two girlfriends. They certainly wouldn't do it. And how would they know when I pulled in the driveway? They lived miles and miles away. So it had to be some type of a paranormal, because I was dabbling in this stuff. I was reading about this subject. I think somebody fed off of my, I don't know if you want to call it my fear or whatever, and put on a good show for me. So I'm thinking, I'm going to run down the cellar stairs. I'm going to go through the cellar door. I'm going to run over to my neighbors. I'm planning this. My mind's going crazy. At that moment, I heard a car pull in the driveway, and I thought, oh, my God, I'm dead. It was my mother and father, thank God.
Yeah,
and it never happened again. Never happened again. But this was during when I was really all excited and jazzed up over, all this crazy stuff. And and through the years, it had to be some type of a paranormal happening, because no one had my number. My neighbors certainly didn't. And how would they know I just pull in the driveway? Nobody knew that.
Right. No, it's possible. It's possible.
It is. Yeah.
That it was something paranormal. Could have also been one of those men in black that you seen
It
back
it
then.
could have been, yeah, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Now they have, of course, the black-eyed kids that are going around and scaring people half to death. Have you? I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yep, I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. That is the most frightening thing I've ever heard of. David Weatherly has the book, the Black-Eyed Kids. If anybody wants to read, it's not for the faint-hearted. But these kids will come out of nowhere and pound on your door, or you'll be sitting in your car in a dark parking lot, and they'll bang, bang, bang on your window, and they keep their head down, and a lot of times they wear hoodies, and they look to be between 10 and 14, and they talk in a very demanding way, and they'll say, Mister, we need you to take us home. We're lost. Weird things. And they'll say, you have to let me in, or we can't. You have to say we can get in your car, or we're not able to do that. And then when they look up, their eyes are completely black, no pupils, just completely black.
Right.
And this is happening all over the country. People are writing in about it, reporting this stuff. And now we have adults with black eyes. That's the latest thing. So it seems to be, to me, it's all of this stuff comes kind of from the same agency, if you want to call it that. It's a spiritual realm of fallen, I call them fallen angels, whatever the Bible calls them, principalities and powers, things that you don't want to really have anything to do with. And I think in the old days, you had the witches on broomsticks, and you had men in black capes, riding black horses. And it's just an update. They keep updating themselves. Now it's the black-eyed kids. It's the men in black. 100 years from now, it'll be somebody else. But it's all, I think, the same tricksters, and that's they're cosmic tricksters, and they feed off of your fear and your wild imaginations. Yeah. I every now and then I think I this is silly, at my age, but it never ceases to intrigue me. I want, knowledge is power. It's good to know about what we're up against. It's fun. It can be dangerous. You can't get too far into it. That's the thing. But no, I've had a lifetime of. It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. I have a lot of one little thing, and I've probably and I'll kind of close it out after this. But I have many times, and I think everybody have this has happened to them. You come in the house, you put your keys on the kitchen table, and you've done it. Yeah. And you come back and they're gone. And then you turn around and you'll find them in another room or in a strange place. This stuff happens to me constantly. And as I've told you, and I think I may have mentioned this. If I did, I'm sorry, but I'll just kind of go over it real quick. I lost my mother a year ago, May, and we were very close. And she had been quite ill, and she was in a rehab for she had broken her back, and she was in there for 3 months. And I would pay $20 every time you had to pay $20 at the desk. If you wanted to get her hair done, they would take her downstairs and shampoo her hair or whatever once a week.
Right.
So I gave them $20, and they would give me a pink receipt. And I would, in turn, give the receipt to my mother. She would hang on it. When they came to take her downstairs, she would give the aide, the receipt to show it was paid for. And, she never brought anything like that home. I mean, she wouldn't have it anyway. She had, handed it over.
Right.
And about 4 months after she died, I just bought a new car. And I stopped for gas one night, and my car is immaculate. I'm always on my hands and knees with the vacuum, cleaning it out. There's nothing in there. There was nothing in that car, nothing. And my mother had been gone, 4 months. And I had been out to dinner with a friend, and I dropped her off, and I stopped to get gas, and I got out the car, and I had the window open a little bit when I was having dinner. It was down maybe an inch. And I pumped the gas, and I went to get back in the car, and I opened up the car door, and I looked down by the gas pedal, and here was this pink slip. And I thought, Well, that's a weird thing for a cop to give me a ticket and roll it up like that and throw it in my car. That's what I thought it was, a ticket, a parking ticket. The only thing that made sense to me. And I unrolled it, and here it was with my mother's name and a receipt for $20, get her hair done. So that was my little proof that, my mother was still with me, and that was that was amazing.
Yep, that's how they do it. They leave little signs, and in your case, your mother left you the ticket, and that's how you know she's with you.
That's right. Yeah, I feel her all the time. I mean, it's amazing. It's like she's never left. In fact, my father died 1977, and my grandmother actually moved in with us at the time and took care of him while my mother went to work. And she says, my father, he had cancer. That's what he died of, and he would go for chemo, and that made him very cold, and it made him tired too. So he would take his nap, and my grandmother would tuck him in the TV room. He used to lay on a little cot about 2:00 every afternoon, and he'd say, "Graham," he said, could you pull the cover up a little bit? My neck is kind of cold. So she would always tuck him in. And my father passed away after a long battle. And about a few months later, I came over to visit, and my grandmother said, "Well, your father was here last night." I said, "Really?" I said, "Why do you say that?" She said, "Well, I was laying on the couch, and she said I just turned the light off and I put the blanket over me, and she said I felt the blanket pull up, and somebody tucked it in around my neck very nicely." And she said that was him. And she saw him standing in the hallway one time, drying his hair, telling her a joke, because I used to kid back and forth. And she saw my uncle, who died in World War II at the age of 18, and he died on the Leopoldville. It was blown up in the English Channel. It was a battleship. And she never got over that. But she said one night, I woke up, and there he was in a beautiful gold light at the foot of my bed. And he said, "Well, Mother, I made it." And she said he looked absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
So, yeah, they're with us. They are with us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, well, that's about all I have for this evening, Patrick.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been a very interesting night, and as always, we love to have you here.
Well, I love to drop by, and I hear next week one of the twins may be on, one of your psychic buddies, huh? Linda or Lori?
That's going to be it's going to be Lori because we're all going to be here anyway, so we'll have to figure out how to do that.
Right. Well, you have to ask her about the angel pin, which I'm sure she'll tell everyone about. It's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. I won't give it away, but she is a treasure trove of good stories, and they're both very spiritual. Her and her sister, and good people, and they've had a lifetime of supernatural happenings. So that'll be a good show for you.
Yep, well, we look forward to that too. But as I said, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and
well, thank you.
We're going to have to do it again.
We will.
And that's
have
good.
Many stories to tell.
Oh yeah,
I'll spread it out over.
That's I don't
want to run out.
We'll have a full season just on you alone. There, we'll be all set.
Okay. I think the next time I come on, I'm going to talk about Sedona. I was out there last summer, which is an extremely interesting area, and that is a whole show in itself. It's going to be good.
Good.
A lot of strange things going on. Okay.
All right. So now the name of the book that you're in, that Nick Renford wrote, is called Men in Black: Paranormal Stories and Eerie Adventures, right?
That's right, and it's Nick, N-I-C-K, Redfern. It's R-E-D-F-E-R-N. He's on YouTube. His book can be bought on Amazon right now, and he said it's one of his better books. So it's all about the weird things that happen to people after you are foolish enough to dabble in this stuff. So it should be a good read.
All right. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay, Patrick. And thanks
All right.
again. And you have
Yep.
a good week, and I'll see you soon.
All right. You take care.
Okay. All the best. Okay.
All
Bye
right.
now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. And that was our interview with Claudia Cunningham. Some interesting stories and some tales of some haunted places. So we look forward to hearing from her again. And again, you can read some of her stories here in Nick Redford's book, Men in Black, Paranormal Stories and Eerie Adventures, which has came out. So we're going to take a quick break here. Again, our call-in number, if you have any stories of your own when we come back that you'd like to tell us about in the next half hour or so. Time flew by, but we have 39 minutes left, so within the next 30 minutes after the break here, if anyone has any paranormal stories or adventures or scary things that have happened to them, please feel free to give us a call. Area code 914-205-5355. That's our call-in number, 914-205-5355. And we'll be back in about 10 minutes after the short musical break here that I'm going to take. Okay, we're back. Call-in number is 914-205-5355. If anyone has any anything that's happened to them that's got to do with the paranormal, or if they've had any experiences, anything they want to talk about, feel free to call in. So our guest was Claudia Cunningham tonight, and she brought up a lot of interesting things as far as paranormal goes. We hit topics a little bit on the Men in Black. We've hit topics on some of the haunted locations in New York State, some of the cemeteries, some places, some folklore of hauntings, Headless Horseman, Tarrytown, things like that. I also want to point out, as I say, when it comes to paranormal and spirits, EVPs and stuff like that, we do this because we know that our loved ones are, haven't just died. I mean, we know that they're in a place that's way better than they were, when they were here. I mean, there's the pain and suffering that they've went through in life. On the other side, are not going through that, and they're in a place which you could say is, in a sense, heaven, because they have no more pain. They're with their loved ones. They're with their friends, and we will, when we pass, we'll see them. As far as I also want to strongly point out that our group and our investigators, we do not delve in demonic activity. We do not delve into using Ouija boards or anything like that. That is totally a no-no for us, and as I'm sure it is for a lot of groups, we don't want to contact any negative spirits. What we do is, again, a scientific approach to finding out where our soul, our energy, our spirit goes after we leave our body. And we do this because we know that once our body is gone and we leave it, we do live on. Whether it's heaven, whether it's another dimension, whatever your belief system is fine, because that's where you are. You don't just die and that's it. You leave your body, your soul, your energy, your spirit goes to a place where you're basically leaving here. We don't call it dying, we call it living. That's what we call it. Your life continues. The essence of what you were here continues. Again, whether it's in heaven, whether it's another dimension, whatever your belief system is fine, because you live on either way. Again, we don't deal in demonic activities. We never use Ouija boards. We don't attempt to contact any type of negative spirits or demonic entities. We just want to prove that there is a life after we leave our body, and this is all we're doing. Whether we contact our loved ones from heaven, whether we contact them from another dimension, this is it. This is what we do. So just want to make that clear, and I usually clarify that in all my shows as far as that goes. I do want to mention something, as long as I'm on the heaven and the religious subject for a moment here. I will, between now and our next show, pull up an interview that was done with CNN and our recent Pope from the Vatican, who was asked a question: if there is life on other planets, and if that life happened to come here, what is your take on that? And I will have that on next week's show. It'll be a short clip of an interview that was done with him, and he basically stated to a CNN person who was interviewing him at the time that if there were people on Mars, and if they came to Earth and requested a baptism, he would be more than honored to do that. So, it's changed a lot since some of the religious beliefs in the past, especially with the advent of the Kepler observatory that's been sent up and have found many, many, many Earth-like planets in our own backyard here. So, just because there's life on other planets, and the Pope would be willing to baptize them, doesn't mean necessarily that that there's a disbelief in God. No, there's no disbelief in God whatsoever, because the God that created us in this world and all of its living creatures obviously would be the creator of every living creature throughout the universe, if there was such beings out there who are on other planets. So, and with the advent, like I said, of the observatory, the Kepler observatory that was launched a few years ago, that has found other planets similar to our own, it's just it's remarkable that we're discovering this, and it's a remarkable time to be alive in. Many changes and a lot of changes have already happened, and there's a lot more changes to come. And with that, we hope to change the destiny of the paranormal field to one day become a hard science, as I said many times, where we can actually prove for once and for all that there is a life after we leave our bodies here on this earth, in this realm. So, with that said, getting back to our guest that was on earlier, Claudia, and the recent book that has been written by the international paranormal expert Nick Renford, Men in Black, Personal Stories and Eerie Adventures. And then Claudia appeared in this book with some of her adventures, as well as other people. So we look forward to reading that book, and it can be purchased, as I say, on Amazon, or I don't have Nick Renford's site at this moment, but we can certainly pull that up. He has written a lot of books, and this is his most recent, and I believe is going to be a bestseller if it isn't labeled that already. So, again, our number is 914-205-5355. If anyone would like to call in with some of their experiences or know of any hauntings or locations, please feel free to call in. We still have about around a little less than 20 minutes, but we could take your calls. Be very happy to take them. Next week's show, we're going to have Lori, yes, on our show, who is a It has some psychic medium abilities, and also has some stories of her own that we will be discussing on next week's show. So look forward to that. And again, you can always call in and discuss. Become part of the show with the guests that we have on. With your questions or anything that you might have to say or ask to our guests that are on. I'll tell you, time sure flies when you have a person like Claudia on, because she's just a prolifery of paranormal experiences and a vast knowledge of the paranormal and the unknown. And it's just amazing to have her on our show. And as I said, she's become quite a celebrity because she's been on several other shows besides ours. And she's been in a few books written by one written by Timothy Green Beckley, and the other one from Nick Redford, his most recent book, which is Men in Black, Personal Stories and Eerie Adventures. So, getting back to my my experience that I had with the apparition of a friend of mine that I'd lost many years ago. That's when I noted and realized that some changes happen before the apparitions appear. And these are documented scientific changes. I mean, it's not something that come out of a hat. There's a change in the atmosphere. There's a change in the electromagnetism, creating a static type of electricity. There's an eerie silence, a very quiet. It's like you're not here, like you're between two worlds in a sense. And again, if you're fortunate enough to actually, and several people have, I'm sure, hundreds of people have come out with this recently. About actually contacting, touching, and holding a loved one or an apparition or someone that they had seen. That they know. But again, I was fortunate enough, like I said, I was a lot calmer at that time. I was in a relaxed setting. I wasn't even thinking about, her death at that time. But it had been roughly about 6 months, and since she passed, and it just again, a lot has to do with the thunder storm too. And I believe that the weather, the atmospheric changes that occurs during a thunderstorm, the enormous amount of electricity produced from the lightning itself, it's just amazing. I mean, it's just something that that we believe helps open the veil up the other side. And as I said, once it got quiet, there was the sudden coldness, in the room. The temperature started to drop. You could feel it. Then you usually you would see this bluish white light forming. Inside this light would be the white area would be the energy, I believe, of the person who is on the other side. And the forms, I mean, this takes a lot of energy to form from one, as I say, dimension to this dimension here, splitting the veil and being able to have enough energy to appear in the physical form, in the physical world, from, say, the fifth dimension or the fourth dimension to back to the third dimension is definitely takes a lot of energy. And I believe that the thunderstorm and the lightning had a lot to do with that. And you know, I wasn't crazy. I know I'm not crazy. You know, I wasn't drinking, so I can't say I was drunk. Again, you know, I had a glass of brandy, and that's my favorite drink, obviously. I've drank it for many years, but not a daily drinker. Rare occasions, holidays, stuff like that. So, never had a problem with alcohol, never done drugs. So this, when she appeared to me, this was a real experience. And I had, the only thing I could say is I'm not sure if I had equipment set up at the time, if I could have caught that. It was so many years ago, and not sure if the equipment at that point was as advanced as like anything like we do now. But you know, I know it happened, and people who have had the same experience, which I would like to have people with that experience call in on one of our shows and discuss it. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one, because I've done studies on it and have seen where hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have had similar apparitional experiences where the full body had formed, and the whether they noticed the changes or not in the area as the apparition had formed, I can't say, but I know that they have had experiences such as mine, where they've actually been able to touch one another and feel them. Again, my experience was when I was getting closer to her, it was very, very cold, and I believe that can be explained on a quantum level, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Just the fact that I had held her, she was solid, and I'm not sure how long it was. More than likely it was only for 4 or 5 seconds before she faded away, and you could feel the solidness going into nothingness. But at that point, you know, I had known that I had touched someone from the other side whom I had lost, and which furthered my